Hey guys, Probable1701 here. Today we're going to talk about Super 7. And I want to talk about 5 franchises or retro toy lines or cartoons I would love for them to do figures of, either in the reaction scale or the ultimate scale. As someone who grew up in the 80s and 90s, you know, it was just a great time to be a kid, a great time for toy lines and cartoons. And I love that Super 7 is bringing a lot of that back with like Transformers and Thundercats and Silverhawks and Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. So these are 5 franchises I would like them to get a hold of. And this isn't in any particular order. Starting off with the Visionaries. I love the retro Visionaries toys. I didn't watch the cartoon a lot, but I love the toy line. I actually have 8 of the figures now put up. Holograms fascinate me. I loved holograms back then. With Visionaries and another toy line we'll get to. I thought they looked cool they were built kind of like G.I. Joes, but slightly larger, kind of like Cops was. Slightly larger with the hologram on the chest piece, and then of course the hologram on the staff that could change while you turned it. I'd love to get these in a 7-inch ultimate scale. I mean, you could do a reaction line of them as well, but I'd rather get them in the ultimate scale. And of course to have the big staff, and I'd love to have it change when you turned it. And then for the chest piece, you could actually have a swappable piece. Instead of doing a lot of different heads, like I wouldn't even need a swappable head, just give me a helmet to put on the head and I'll be happy. I would go for swappable chest pieces. One chest piece would be like the vintage toy where it has the hologram of the animal in it. And then the other chest piece could have it making it look like the creature inside was emerging out, like a couple of statues. There's been a couple of statues the company's making where in the statues you actually see like the bird or snake or whatever it is emerging to come out. Now, you couldn't do that over the top or the figure won't stand up unless you have a stand for it. They'd have to include a stand. But even if it's just slightly emerging out, like just coming out a little bit, would be a cool action feature. And then again, my main point for these is the holograms have to actually be holograms. It can't be like that one Mattel box set that had a bunch of different figures in it, and one of them was a Visionary figure and it wasn't a hologram, it was crap. That won't work. If you're not going to do the holograms, don't do the toy line. The holograms are what sold the toy line. But if they actually go old school with the holograms, I would get these, especially with the accessories and weapons they could come with. I'd probably be in on these. Second on the list, sticking with holograms, would be an Ultimates line for the Supernaturals. I loved the Supernaturals. I know it wasn't the most popular toy line, but I'm willing to bet there's some nostalgia for it. I don't know how well it would sell, but what I would do if I was Super 7 is I would open up pre-orders for just a wave, like wave 1 just be 2 figures. Because they're probably going to cost more. Same thing with the Visionaries. Using the hologram technology is probably going to raise the price slightly. Even more so possibly for Supernaturals because it's a whole chest and head of a hologram. I would, instead of doing 4 figures, I would do 2. One good guy, one bad guy, and that bad guy's got to be that one really cool one, Lord something or another, the black and red one that just looks like the Evil Knight. He's my favorite one of all the vintage toys. Do him and then do one of the good guys. That's it. And then just do a pre-order and see how it does. The hardest part would be, do you give him any neck articulation? Do you risk breaking up the hologram piece right here, or do you do it like the vintage toy where the head is just one small piece? Yeah, you're sacrificing articulation a little bit. You can still articulate the arms, the legs, just like Super 7 does all of their stuff, and just not articulate the head. Now, you could articulate the head, but then you risk having that cut there in the hologram, and I don't know how well that would work. Now, if you do want to break it up and do the head as a separate piece, you could actually have an interchangeable head that just looks like a normal face, and you could swap that out. Because like the vintage toys, it could come with its chest cover, so you could have the chest exposed to see the hologram, or you could put the little chest cover on top of it, like the vintage toy. And if you do that, you could have the chest cover on top and then have a regular looking head you swap out to make it look regular. And then you could take the chest cover off to see the hologram and snap on your hologram head. But then again, you risk that cut right there at the neck, and you have to decide whether or not you want that. I would personally be in for those. I don't know if I'd really care for the little ghost ones, the ones without the legs that were in the vintage line. I didn't really care for those. I only like the fully grown with the legs. But if they did those, I know I at least would be in for some of them. So I wouldn't mind seeing them maybe flirt with that idea. Next on the list is Mask, Mobile Armored Strike Command. Now, first off, you don't do ultimates of it, because Mask is more about the vehicles than the figures. I don't know how many people would buy Ultimates Mask figures. I would probably get a Matt Tracker if they did a Matt Tracker, because I love Matt Tracker. That's one of my childhood heroes. I loved Mask as a kid. So if they did an Ultimates Matt Tracker, I'd be in for it. But he's probably the only one, to be honest, that I would be in for. What they should do is, I don't know if you do them as reaction figures or if you do them like a brand new thing where you do them as like a G.I. Joe scale, where you actually give them more articulation, kind of like a G.I. Joe figure. Do them in that 3/3/4 scale. So you either do them in the reaction line or you do them in the 3/3/4 scale, and you do the vehicles. The vehicles could be special items, kind of like, you know, the Cat Slayer, the Thunder Tank, the Turtle Van. So they wouldn't have to do mass figures a lot. But I guarantee you, if they announced a Thunderhawk, even though they would be very much competing with what Ramen Toys is doing, I get that. And I'm really upset I missed out on the Ramen Toys Gull Wing, because that thing looks beautiful. And I don't know if we'll get a reissue of it due to that cease and desist order that they got. But, which is another reason Super 7 might not want to tackle Mask. But I think the cease and desist order was more over the packaging than the toy, because the packaging looked too much like the Mask packaging for Gullwing. So maybe they'll reissue it in a different packaging. That would be nice, because I really want it. But I would love the idea of Super 7 maybe flirting with that idea and doing some mass-related stuff on a smaller scale. And then you could get the vehicles either in the same scale as the vintage mass figures, or maybe even in the same scale as what Ramen Toys is doing, because I'd spend $200 on a Thunderhawk if it's a good Thunderhawk. I have a vintage Thunderhawk right up there, actually. But if they did, a vintage, if they did one, I'd be up for it. Again, I'm frustrated I missed out on Gullwing. But for $200, I'd throw down on it. I would not throw down $400 on it, or $500 on it. But for $300, yeah, they'd get me, or $200. $200, they'd get me on a smaller scale figure. I don't need a Thunder Tank size Thunderhawk. I don't. But something the size of the Gullwing or the vintage one, I would be in on that. Now, I love Mask, and the opportunity to get more Mask stuff is always a plus for me. Next on the list would actually be Captain Planet. Now, as a kid, I liked the Captain Planet cartoon. I don't think I could sit through it now, I'll be honest. I don't think it's aged well. But I did like the toy line as a child, and some of the characters had some cool designs. And especially with Captain Planet itself, you could get a lot of mold reuse out of him. There's so many different variations of him, and you could do glow-in-the-dark ones and shiny ones and pollute-covered ones. You can do all sorts of stuff with that Captain Planet mold. And that, in fact, I don't think Captain Planet had a big cast of characters. I think you could probably finish the line up in 5 to 8 waves. Like 5 waves to 8 waves, boom, you probably have most of the cast done between the villains and the good guys. And of course, a lot of people would want Captain Pollution as well. But I loved the character designs. I always thought the 5 teenagers had cool character designs. I loved how the multi-ethnicities of them. You know, you had people from all walks of life in different countries. Even Lincoln was like from Russia. This was right when the Cold War, I think, was still going. So I like just the different origins of all these people. It was actually really ahead of its time on that, I think. And then the villains. You have some wonderful villain designs. I always liked the one woman, the one with her left eye covered up because it's scarred. I can't remember her name. But there's something intoxicating about her. But I always liked a lot of the villain designs. There were some really good designs in this, Captain Planet's mullet notwithstanding. And if they actually did, I would consider getting into it, actually, depending on how they looked. It's something I would definitely think about. And last on the list is Voltron, which, to be fair, Super 7's done a couple Voltron Ultimates figures, which they've done. Well, they've done Voltron, they've done a metallic Voltron, they've done a black and white Voltron. But I'd love for them to do some of the cast. I mean, you could do the 5 pilots, well, the 6 pilots, really, if you include Sven. You know, you could always do Sven. And then you could do them in their suits, you know, when they're piloting Voltron pilot suits, and then you can do them in their casual dressed outfits as well. So you get 2 uses out of them there. Then you have the guy with the mustache who's kind of the princess's guardian. I forget his name. You could do him. Of course, you could do the leader of the bad guys. You could do Hagar. You could do the leader of the bad guy's son, Lotor. Yeah, Lotor. You could do them. And then there's all the Robeast you could do. That could be another big project, just for them to do a big Voltron. Since they've already done the regular side, they could do a big Voltron if they wanted as a big project. And then you could also cross over to the vehicle Voltron and do some stuff from that. You could cross over to the Netflix Voltron series and do some stuff for that. So I think you could get a lot of figures out of that line, actually. So I wouldn't mind them maybe looking into that for the ultimate scale. So that's 5 franchises I would like to see Super 7 do some stuff with. I want to know what you think and which 5 you would pick. If you could pick 5 franchises for them to do that. And if you liked any of the ones I've named, so comment down below and let me know. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. That helps me out and I certainly appreciate it. I also have a Patreon. If you would like to support me on that, there's a link to that down in the description below. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Finn Perkins, and Colin Coney. I appreciate their support as I do the support of all of my patrons. It does make a difference. I have a P.O. box. If there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review, that's down there as well. As is a link to my Amazon wish list, which I update regularly. I also have another channel that's kind of my main channel I do called Another Sci-Fi Guy, where I talk about all things Doctor Who related and some other sci-fi stuff as well, but mostly Doctor Who. If you're a Doctor Who fan, check that out. And most importantly, thank you for watching. Hey guys, Promo 1701 here. Today we're going to talk about Super 7. Let's try that again.